Yeah. Are we good? Hey everybody, Joe from Treadmill Heroes here, and behind me, right there, is Matrix T5X commercial grade treadmill, and as you can see, it needs a new running belt right here. This thing's a little dirty, but all in all, it's in pretty good shape. But we've got a customer that bought a pair of these, so I'm going to be replacing the running belt, flipping the deck, changing out the drive belt on this thing. So I figured I'd have you come along with me and show you how to do it if you care. So here we go. We're going to dive right into this thing. First of all, we got to strip some plastic off of here. This is a 6mm Allen wrench. So we're going to get some of these screws taken out. I'm going to actually find a better Allen wrench too, because this one doesn't turn too easily inside of here. Hope everybody had a wonderful New Year's. This is a good time to let you know that if you need any exercise equipment, you should reach out to your friends at Treadmill Heroes right here in Wilton, Iowa, right in the center of the country. We sell new and reconditioned fitness equipment, as well as we do service, we do moves, we do installs, we do all the things. So keep this in mind if you're ever in need. I'm going to get a better Allen wrench here. Got lots of friends in the fitness world that have been joining us lately. Let's find the proper 6mm here. Oh, look at that guy. We'll even put one on a driver. That's more fun and quicker. These commercial treads are great, especially these ones here. We're starting to see a lot of these Matrix T5Xs on the secondary market. These are, I don't know, starting to be between 5 and 9 years old, and so we're starting to see these come out of lease. And as they're coming out of lease, a lot of them have been pretty well taken care of. So they got the 2 screws that hold you on the top, and you have some Velcro that's kind of holding it on. I just noticed when I took this hood off, we're going to need to find this customer another hood. There's a little crack right here. Right there. So we're going to replace this hood with a better one. And you've got some wear marks here. This is where people's feet hit when you're walking on the treadmill. So we'll move him off to the side and get him gone. I'm going to pull this front cover off here too. You'll notice that sometimes these get cracked. I'm hoping, yeah, we got a little crack right there, but that's not critical. We could probably save this piece. Typically, these front ends are up against a wall anyway. I'm gonna ask the Raven to hop on our YouTube channel quick and make sure I've got some good sound. Can you do that for me? Just make sure people can hear us. Oh, look at that, an MYE receiver. Look at that little guy hidden there. So this right here, this is an MYE receiver. So this came out of a facility that had some TVs on the wall, and it would transmit the sound over to this, and then you could listen to it up top. But we don't need that anymore, and we certainly don't need this powered on anymore. So I'm going to take this MYE receiver off. He's going to be the first one to get pitched. Anymore, people are just listening to stuff on their phones. We do love MYE though. They do have some good products over at this company. And they actually got some cool stuff too, where you can send messages to members while they're working out through the TVs. So if you're good, check those guys out. Pull this Velcro piece off. We don't need that on there anymore. So take a look inside of here. This thing is not as bad as a typical commercial grade treadmill that we see. You know, you got a little bit of dust here, but we're going to blow all this out with the air compressor. We're going to clean all that up and get that good to go. And Casey is running the camera right now, so if you guys got any questions while I'm going, I will do my best to answer the questions while we're chipping away at this thing. Here's the fun part. We're going to cut the running belt off and show you the deck. We're not going to reuse this belt, of course. So Pull out our handy dandy little knife here. And you can just cut this belt right off. Oh, this is kind of the satisfying part. Right there. I've seen way worse belts than this. All in all, this is in pretty good shape, but not when it comes to reconditioning a tread. So that's going to go. So we can pitch that old belt. Got a new one right here from our friends over at the Fitness Graveyard. Hey, if you're ever in need for fitness equipment parts, you can go on to fitnessgraveyard.com and check out our friends over there. They have some amazing parts, new and used parts, because, you know, when it comes to like a used wearable item, like a used running belt or something like that, that you need new. But like electronics, a lot of electronics are, they either work or they don't. So we've got a lot of good lower boards and stuff there. Okay, here on the back, I believe this is a 4mm. I think this is a 4mm Allen wrench right here. So we got to take these end caps off. I don't know if you can see that in there. So these end caps are held on by that little screw there, and there's one on the inside, I believe. But I got to get this first one out of there. And they can be kind of a little devil to get in there. Let's see here. In fact, I'm going to put my Allen wrench in the long way and grab him with a pair of pliers, because I don't have the grip strength to turn it. If you're looking around in the video right now, we're in our shop right here in Wilton, Iowa. This is one of our, it's kind of a show floor mix shop. People come in here and buy stuff from us. But also I use this place to kind of work on equipment. Okay, here's the other screw right underneath of here. I'm going to take that off, and that should get our end cap off there, because I got to take the rear roller off. Now on this particular screw right here, you don't have to take it out all the way. It's got an open-ended hole there. So that'll slide right out of there once we get it loose. There you go. So certainly we're going to clean all that gunk out. That all kind of just collects over time. Usually when we do general maintenance, we'll pop these caps off and we'll put new ones on. Or not new ones on, but we'll get those cleaned up. There's Jerry, our parts manager. Jerry, you can say hi.
Hello.
So Jerry...
How's the faceplate looking here?
Faceplate looks good on that one.
On this one.
Yeah, yeah, and while Jerry just asked me how the faceplate is looking, we had a couple of these come in where the faceplate was really faded, and it looked terrible, and it was because someone had used like the bleach wipes, like the Clorox wipes and stuff, and it completely stained the console. So make sure you're always using approved wipes for your equipment. We actually provide, it's like a bamboo all-natural wipe that we supply our gyms with, and they're safe for any of the touch screens, any of the other stuff, and you don't have to worry about bleach staining the screens or causing problems. So now I'm just taking out the other side, and there again I'm loosening this up. And there we go. There's another one. Oh, a little rock fell out of there. So yeah, just a little bit of gunk in there. Like I said, we'll get these all cleaned up nice and neat. Here's our rear roller. As you can see, any treadmill is going to usually have a bunch of debris on there like that. This is a combination of dirt and wax. Let me show you here how this just comes right off. So this is just stuff that gets pulled underneath the running belt. So I'm going to clean that up with a buffer wheel there, a little wire brush wheel. The other thing that works out good too, if you want to clean these up and not scab them up too bad, you just take like an old hotel room key like this, and you can actually just clean that off right there. It's actually easier just to clean it while it's still on the tread, and that won't scrape up the roller at all, and that'll get all this junk off of there. So I might as well just clean a bunch of this off. Yeah, and this is just, like I said, a combination. So what happens is the wax on the deck will heat up, and then it ends up accumulating on the roller. Now, in a perfect world where there's no dust or debris, it just recirculates itself back underneath the running belt. But over time, so what'll happen though is you're using the tread, the wax is getting warm, and it's on the rollers, and then you stop using the tread, and then it sits. Well, then it accumulates on the roller here. And then usually it doesn't get hot enough to burn it back off the roller, and it just sits there. So if you ever hear like a thumping sound, like a fast rotating, like kind of sound, that's usually you got a bunch of debris on your rollers, and you can clean them off either by just removing the rear roller and leaving the belt on, which we could have easily done, but since I'm replacing the belt, I cut it anyway. Or you can leave the roller on and just spin it like this. And that's nice and clean. Certainly we're going to give it a good final cleaning here, but that just shows you how easy it would be to clear off that debris if you just needed to get that off of there. Now we're going to remove our rear roller. Here's the other thing too. If you do not plan on, let's talk rear rollers for a second. So rear rollers, just like your front roller, have bearings inside of them. And when you tighten these bolts on the back here, it pulls the rear roller back, which in turn snugs up the running belt. Well, there's bearings inside of here. And so what can happen is if you over tighten that rear roller, especially on the residential grade treadmills, if you over tighten that, what's going to happen is you're going to end up with too much pressure on those bearings, and those bearings can start to make noises. You don't need to get your running belt fiddle string tight. You need to just get it so it doesn't slip on you. So what I've seen people do is they actually over tighten the rear roller, and then what happens is the bearings go out. The other thing that a telltale sign, if you have a running belt that's too tight, your belt will tent up in the middle. It'll kind of, do one of those deals. And that's just because there's just too much tension on it. So once that happens, unfortunately, you're going to need a new running belt. But lesson learned, not to over tighten the rear roller there. How are we looking, Casey? Do we got any lurkers watching the video right now? Or can we not tell through the app? I don't know if we can tell through this app.
You've got 45 people watching you on YouTube.
Well, hello, 45 people on YouTube. How are you today?
And 3 people on Facebook.
And 3 people on Facebook. Well, hello, Facebook people. So what I'm doing right now, just to recap, is I'm taking off the rear roller. I'm working on a Matrix T5X. We are putting on a new running belt. Actually a good friend of mine who is opening up a facility, he needed a pair of treads. We were originally going to do a pair of Life Fitness Club Series treadmills, but they were pretty rusty, and I thought, well, you know what, I'm just going to clean the rust off and paint that. And boy, that didn't work out. I'm pretty sure that's powder coated, and then the spots where the powder coat is still on and the paint wasn't sticking, and it just turned into a whole mess. And that's why we typically, when we recondition treadmills, we typically don't paint them. If there's rust, we try to clean them up the best we can, but these are nice. These particular units don't rust very much. Now look here, this is a little catch pan. Actually, not only for stabilization, but this crossbar here is to make sure it's nice and close to the roller so you don't get fingers sucked underneath there. But dust gets underneath there, and you can just see how easily that all accumulates. So, there again, we'll get all that cleaned off. Next up, I'm going to take the deck off of this thing. So the deck is held on by some deck bolts right here. Bang. 2 in the back, 2 in the front. And I believe this deck, I didn't look, but I think this deck can be flipped. Now, how do you know? Okay, how do you know the deck can be flipped on a commercial grade tread before you even look? Well, you can reach underneath the belt, and if you scrape the underneath side, you should be able to get some white residue, which that's typically going to be wax, which will be a fresh layer on the bottom side of the deck. So I haven't even looked. If I'm just scratching underneath, look at there. So I know this deck can be flipped. There's a fresh layer of wax underneath there. And that wax is also what, you know, when it heats up, when combined with dirt, it will accumulate on the rollers there. So now we're back to, I believe this is a 5mm Allen wrench right here on the deck. So we're going to take out these deck bolts here. There's one. Treadmill Heroes is celebrating going into its 15th year in business, which is kind of cool. Technically, we started in late 2009, but our first full year was 2010. And so that's pretty neat. Starting this thing up back in 2010, and we're still cooking right along and repairing and moving and selling all kinds of exercise equipment. The brands that we sell new are True Fitness, Octane, Star Trek, Nautilus, Stairmaster. We got our friends at TKO and Tag Fitness, and we sell saunas and blah, blah, blah. So we do residential and commercial stuff. So here we go. The big reveal on the bottom side of the deck. And looky there. So with just a plain old rag, which I'll get. Let me set this back down. I'm going to get a rag to wipe this off to kind of show you. I'm going to go over here to my messy table. I'll be right back. So this deck is still ready to go. You have a fresh side. On these commercial treads, they typically will use a 1-inch deck. Looky there. Don't use any cleaner to clean off this deck. Just wipe it off. All there is dust on here, so this will just clean right off. And right here, if you can see it, this is a fresh factory-laid layer of wax lubricant on here. It's basically like a paraffin wax that they kind of iron on the deck there. So we're going to take this deck off and save him for later. The other thing that we're going to look at too is when you're flipping a deck, and I will tell you that, like, well, for example, that Soul treadmill right there behind me in this Spirit treadmill, typically those are flippable decks as well. Not every treadmill has a wax surface on the deck. Some of them just use a silicone-based lubricant. So you won't have this wax to tell you if you have a fresh side of the deck. However, if we flip this back over again, I don't know if Casey can get in here close, but you can start to see some of the pitting on this deck in here. And this is where, when you step and your feet drag on the deck, it starts to wear off this surface. Well, what is this surface? Well, basically this is like a thin plastic layer, a thin, slick plastic layer. And if you look at the top of the deck here, it's hard to see because they painted it black, but this right here is just plain old wood. This is just a wood deck with a real thin layer of plastic, slick plastic. I think they call it like a melamine or something like that. Everybody calls it something different. And so what you can do is to tell if you can flip the deck on your treadmill is, does the bottom side and the top side both have this slick melamine surface on them? You'll be able to tell right away if your hand glides along real good. Your hand will glide along real good along the side because that's not where your feet step. Your feet are going to step right here in the middle when you're walking on it. So you don't want to ever put a new belt on an old deck because this is already worn through. It's a very thin layer. So what's going to happen is you're going to put a new belt on this, and you're going to wear through this right away, and you're going to get down to the wood. And then that's just going to torch your belt. And worse yet, it's going to cause more drag and friction and heat, and you're probably going to cause issues to your electronics. So now that we've got the deck all wiped off, we're just going to set him off to the side. We're going to be able to use him later and put him on with the fresh belt. Okay, so now that we've got the deck off of this thing, you can kind of see, in here where it gets a little dirty. And also, I'm going to take off these side saddles here because I want to clean underneath of there too. If we're already this far, I want to make sure that we get this frame really cleaned up. And there again, I'm going to use my air compressor here in a little bit, and I'm going to blow all this out of here, but I want to get the majority of it off of here, the big stuff, before I start spraying air all over this because I'm going to make a mess here in the shop. So to take off these side saddles here, I'm going to show you. I'm going to lift up the back side of this. All right, check this out. So you'll see these bolts here, here, and there. Well, there's 4 of them. So these actually thread up through the frame, and there's like a little T-nut, I guess I could call it. And all that's doing is it's sucking the side saddle down onto the frame. So when I loosen these, this should just slide off, and I shouldn't have to take out all the hardware. I should be able to just let it hang out in there for a minute. And I think that's also the same size as the deck Allen wrench, which is right here. So the same Allen wrench, I believe, that used to take out the deck hardware, yep, fits right in there. So we're just going to loosen these up a little bit. I can already hear the plastic kind of having some tension taken off of it. So I don't know, Casey, if you can get underneath of there and show me unthreading the... This one's kind of a stinker because the rear leg is in the way. There you go. But I don't take them out all the way. I just get them loose. And I'm going to take this one out here. And this one up front here. And now that these are loose, this thing should slide right off. See, okay, here's, I don't know what the proper name, I always just call these T-nuts. Because, as you loosen this up, this raises up. And as you thread it in, it just snugs it back down. So you're going to keep them nice and loose. This will slide right out of here. We'll try not to hit my beautiful Nautilus machines over here. There we go. So you'll see there's just this open track right here. And those T-nuts slide right through there. And once they're in, they're not going to turn because they fit kind of snug in there. But you want to inspect these to make sure none of these are broke. What happens is, unfortunately, is these get over-tightened, and they'll pull that through and they'll crack it and they'll break it. So we want to make sure these are still in good shape, and if not, you want to replace these because this is where the user stands on the side of the tread when, they're not actually running on it, and you don't want those loose. But these are good just to kind of hang out right here. I'm going to do the other side now, and take that one off. We're just going to rinse and repeat. Hey, if you're watching this, I'd love to know where you guys are watching from. As we're trying to build this channel and help people fix their own exercise equipment, it's always kind of neat. I was talking to the folks over at the Fitness Graveyard where we ship out parts everywhere, and it's kind of neat to see even the different countries where we send parts to. Exercise is universal. You got to do it no matter where you're from. Stay healthy. It's one of the few things in this life where there's no magic pill for it yet. And there's pills, but you still got to put in the work. And so people exercise all over the world. So that slides right off of there. And there we go. No broken ends on the track there on these step saddles either, so set him up out of the way. Okay, deck cushions. Here we go. You know what's kind of interesting about these? At one point in time, and I don't know if they still do it, but this particular type of deck cushion, you can kind of see it when I press down. See, they flex. I had heard, and I don't know if this is BS, I actually heard this from Life Fitness because they use the same exact deck cushions. I was told at one point in time that this is the same, this component is the same thing they use in Corvette suspensions. Now that was probably 10 years ago, 11 years ago I was told that. So, but that's kind of neat. I don't know, somebody made that, and this is a pretty common thing that we see in treadmill decks for the cushioning. What you do in commercial treadmills, at least, residential treadmills, you're going to see something like this, and these have different levels of, I guess I'll call it flex. So right here, this is pretty firm. If I press down on that, it doesn't really go anywhere. It's just kind of a solid spacer, and that makes sense because all of the impact is on the front of your treadmill right here. So you're going to want it to flex a little bit, but you don't need any flex back here. If that happens, you end up having some bowing in the middle, and then you're going to end up having a deck that's kind of banana shaped, and we don't want that. So, but this is another reason why I take those step saddles off, because you just see you got this dirt here. It's just caked on. So you really got, you really got to scrub it to get it off of there. There again, we're going to vacuum all this up and use the air gun. Yeah, and I would encourage you guys, if you don't have the luxury of having like a little air compressor handy, get one of those little cans of compressed air. Once you get all the heavy dust and debris knocked off the tread, one of those will get into the little crevices and stuff and get all this junk out of here, like what you can't reach, like down underneath of here. Now you can certainly take this whole thing off, but a little can of compressed air is going to go a long ways. So now here we are, we're at the front roller. Okay, so you got your drive motor here, tension arm, that keeps tension on the drive belt from slipping, and then the motor turns the front roller. The front roller makes the running belt move, and then it just goes back and forth on these two rollers here. So now I take my old ratty hotel room key at this point. Same deal. We can just scrape all that off. The front roller typically doesn't have as much debris on it. I don't know why. You'd think it would be the same. So there again, we can scrape all that off, but quite honestly, this is caked on pretty good, so I'm probably going to use a wire brush.
Someone asked a question.
Yeah, well, they want to know, Casey.
Can you use a non-working treadmill as a manual treadmill?
You can. Okay, so the question is, can you use a non-working treadmill as a manual treadmill? You can. However, when you basically are pressing and walking on the belt, here I'll show you right over on this one. So like here's one right here. Here's another matrix treadmill that's not powered on. Now when I go to walk on this, I can push it like this, right? But what I would do for sure, and that like I don't have enough leverage, right? So first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to elevate it up with like a, if it doesn't work at all and you can't actually push the button to elevate it, then I would put some wood blocks or something underneath of the front to lift it up. But still, you're going to need to push it. Now, what I would do is I would pop the hood on your treadmill and I would disconnect this belt right here, this drive belt, because this is hooked up to your drive motor, and that's giving you a lot of resistance. So take this drive belt off, and you could walk on it. How I would do it, though, is I would walk on it with the intent of like pushing it. You're going to use more muscles that way anyway, but it's going to feel really weird. The non-motorized treadmills that work really well are the ones that have a curve to them. We actually sell one from TKO. It's called the Air Raid, and that's a sweet tread. But just a traditional treadmill designed to have you keep up with the belt, it's very hard to do. So, anyway, I hope that answers that. It's kind of a yes-no answer. You can, you're not going to want to. All right, so I'm going to keep messing with that later. Yeah, this is pretty caked on, so I'm probably going to end up using a wire brush to clean that off of there. I got a grinder wheel with a wire brush on it. Let's go over to this. Now, this is going to be kind of a stinker here. So, on matrix treads, a lot of people use a spring-loaded tension. I have my flashlight on me. Look at that. Okay, so that right there is the tension spring that is pulling down and pressing this tension wheel against this drive belt. That's keeping the drive belt from slipping. You'll see when we take the drive belt off, there's no grooves here for this Poly V belt. It just is so tight on this, I don't know, the roller wheel here that it doesn't slip. But there is a ton of tension on this belt. Now, typically, since I am going to put a new drive belt on this anyway, whenever I replace the running belt, I'll replace the drive belt. Typically, I just cut that. But let's say you're not going to replace this. I'm going to try and get this tension spring off of here. Matrix does make a spring tool that you can clip on there and lift up on that and then get the spring off. I don't have one with me, so I got to just use like a pair of pliers. And it's kind of 50-50 if you pinch your finger doing this. But so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab that spring right here on the outside. It's open on this end of the spring. So I'm going to grab that and I'm going to squeeze it as hard as I can. I'm going to lift up and then I'm going to lower that spring down. Now, before this comes off down here at the bottom, while I'm holding it, I'm going to hold my flashlight again. Look to see where that's hooked down underneath there. I don't know if you can get it from the side, but now as I kind of take that off of there, I'm going to drop that, try to show it to you. Reach in there. Try and do it so you can see it from the camera. It's just set inside that frame there. So you're going to want to watch how that's orientated. So the open ends of the spring are facing the back of the treadmill. So you can see, now you can see it. You can see those two slots where it goes down in. Come this way, Casey. Yeah, you can see those two slots where it goes down in, and then this hooks, and then the top hook will hook on the tension wheel. But for now, we're good with the spring. Now there's no tension on this. I can roll that forward. And that's going to come right off of there. But in order to get it all the way off, we've got to take the front roller off. So, hey, real quick, now, let's go back to this rear roller. This is some rear roller 101 here. When you remove a treadmill rear roller, either take it off, set it here like this, and don't move it, or mark it. So what I'll do is I always mark the user right side. So I'll just take my knife here and I'll just score it somehow so I can recognize that, right? The belt doesn't even run on that, but that little mark there will tell me, it's just the way I've always done it, that that's the user right side. Because what can happen is you can take this off, toss it off to the side, end up putting it back on this way, which it'll go either way. All it does is spin. I know this sounds crazy, but because there's bearings inside of here, and these bearings are used to having tension on them and always running this way, when you turn this over, the bearing's running in a different direction. And if you have a bearing that is about to go out or was fine this way, but now this way, it'll start making noise. I know it sounds crazy. We've had techs do that all the time where You take the rear roller off, you go to put it back on, now it's making noise. Well, it got turned over, and now you need to put new bearings in. I'm going to put new bearings in this anyway, so it doesn't matter. There's some hair for you. And but if you're just going to take it off and maybe put a new belt on without changing out the bearings, make sure you mark it. I was just there again. Now I know when I go to pick this up, that's the user right side. The front roller, it doesn't matter because it has the pulley on the front there, so it can only go one way. So now we got to remove the front roller. So there's an anchor bolt right here on the side. Oh, holy hell. Oh, freaking Hercules put that in there. There we go. We're going to loosen this side, take him all the way out. There again, as you're watching this, if you have any questions on Treadmills 101 or treadmills in general or exercise equipment in general, don't hesitate to ask. I'll try to answer this on the fly. All right, so right now I'm just taking out this front roller pin here with the washers. There's a lock washer and a flat washer. And I'm going to go to the other side. Do the same thing. If you're just tuning in, thanks for watching. This is my name's Joe. I'm from Treadmill Heroes Exercise Equipment, located in Wilton, Iowa. And we're celebrating our 15th year in business. So I figured we'd go live here, and since I have to recondition this treadmill anyway for a pal who's going to have 2 of them done, I figured I would show you guys how to do it. And I'm trying to speak in general terms too, so you guys understand you can do this on your home treadmill as well. Okay. Second front roller anchor bolt out. Now we can take this front roller out right here. Here's the old drive belt. Let's inspect that just for the heck of it here. What I'll do is I'll turn it inside out, and I'll turn it that way, and I'll look to see if I have any cracks. This belt, all in all, looks like it's in really good shape yet. But, look at that, right there. There's a little break in it. So, yeah, it's a good thing we're going to replace it anyway. So I can set our front roller off to the side. Put him underneath there for now. Oh, here's another thing you should always check. If you have like a high-pitched squeaking noise, sometimes it's your tension wheel. That tension wheel has a bearing inside of it too. For whatever reason on these Matrix treads, I rarely have any noise coming from these. They put a pretty heavy-duty bearing, heavy-duty roller wheel on here. I see a lot of plastic wheels that people use for this. This is, I haven't stuck a magnet on it, but I don't know if that's an aluminum wheel or not, but we really don't have any issues with noise on those. But that can contribute to a squeaking noise, and it can drive you crazy wondering where the noise is coming from. And in reality, it's just a tension wheel that you can change out. Okay, now, back to here, you can see our big plate right here. That's all dirty. This is a good time to talk about, if you have a treadmill at home, you should always have a rubber mat underneath of it. Something like this. Place that sold you the tread should always sell you a mat, regardless if it's cement floor, hardwood floor, carpet, linoleum. It doesn't matter. When the belt moves, it creates a lot of static electricity. And that static electricity builds up and it attracts dust and hair and carpet fibers, pet hair, whatever. And it will get sucked up into the motor compartment. And that's why some of these treads don't even have a plate like this. There's an opening, and that's where all kinds of dust and debris gets blown into the motor compartment. So a rubber mat helps neutralize that static electricity a little bit, helps keep it a little bit cleaner. You're still going to need to pop the hood and vacuum it out. I don't know, do it. Even if you did it once every 3 months, you'd be way ahead of the curve of the average homeowner. It's amazing what we find inside of treadmills under the motor hood. I don't know how, but it just gets sucked up underneath of there. Let's go to the front. All right. Here we've got our drive motor. This is an AC drive motor, so most residential treadmill motors are a DC motor, so it'd be 2 wires. In other words, you could take a battery and hook it up to a residential grade unit, put it on the positive and negative, and have the motor move. This actually runs on AC current, so you can't do that with a battery. There's ways to test these, which I won't get into now. Rarely do you ever see a commercial grade AC motor go completely dead. You can have it where it can have like a break in the wiring so it'll surge a little bit, but rarely do these just die. So if you have a commercial grade treadmill with an AC motor in it that won't go, don't direct your efforts towards the drive motor right away. And you can tell it'll say it right on here, like, where is this one at? This says 230 volts. So it gives you all the indicators. Usually they're going to put what kind of motor it is right on the label on the drive motor somewhere. Then right here you got your lift motor. This is what makes the treadmill go up and down. This motor turns, and there's a worm gear inside of this barrel that makes it go up. And this right here is the motor control board. This takes command from the console, and what it'll do, it will feed power to the motor or the lift motor, depending on what you tell it up top to do. Power cycles through this first before it makes it up to the console. So it kind of does everything. It's kind of central command there. When you plug this thing into the wall, it powers this up, and in turn converts the AC power from the wall to DC power up top here. So anyway, we can maybe talk about that later, maybe not. So what I want to do at this point is I want to get this all cleaned out. I'm going to vacuum this up quick, and then we'll kind of go from there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the new deck on. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I should show you right now. You probably see this rat's nest of wires down here. So a lot of these commercial treads right now have like a network cable, coax hookups here. And they do that stock because you can choose what type of console you want. Now this is just a basic analog digital, or just a digital display. It doesn't have a touch screen. It doesn't have a TV, anything like that. But you could have bought this with the fancy touch screen, and you could stream all kinds of stuff, and Netflix and, X and Facebook and all that. This doesn't have that. And quite honestly, I don't know if I'd recommend that. It's just one more thing to go wrong. Think of it this way. When you end up with a touch screen with all that fancy stuff on it, you're basically putting a laptop computer hooked up to your piece of exercise equipment. And if there's one bug in the software, what's going to happen is it's going to render the unit useless because there's a bug. And then it's kind of like your computer at home where you got to restart it and everything else. That sucks. If you just have a basic analog display up there where it's just the LCD screen, there's really not anything that can go wrong. I mean, we all have, people that we know, or maybe you have an alarm clock at your house that's been around since 1970. It works just perfect. So you start getting into the fancy stuff, that's when things start to go wrong. I'm going to grab a vacuum here and clean this out. And see if I got enough road here. I do. Hopefully this isn't too loud on camera. I don't think it will be. I'm pretty sure you should still be able to hear my microphone here, but Casey can kind of record this a little. Sorry for all you people who like the satisfying view of cleaning up dust. I wiped off all the heavy duty stuff. So right now I'm just cleaning out this cavity of this tread. I'm getting all the big stuff out before I actually hit it with the air compressor. And then we're really going to get it cleaned out, and it'll look super nice. And we're going to blow inside of this motor here too. And you'll be amazed at how much stuff comes out of there, typically. Oh, that junk cleaned up there, man. Look at all that stuff that was on the roller. That's where, here in these deck cushions here, that they collect a lot of junk and debris. Here'll be a fun one for you. Oh, look at that. Look at that big hunk of meat right there. Oh, feels good, don't it? We're going to blow that out with the air compressor as well. Oh, look at that guy. There's all that junk from that roller that we scraped off. You need to be careful not to suck up all the hardware. Hey, and if you're watching me reconditioning this treadmill, I'd love to see you comment where you're watching from. That's always really interesting to see how people find us and why people care about repairing a piece of exercise equipment. But I care about it, and the person who's going to receive this certainly cares about it. I'm going to go fire up my air compressor here quick and bring the hose over. Oh, you want to see something wild? Look at this. So this is an upcoming project of mine. Believe it or not, this is a Life Fitness 95 Ti treadmill. It doesn't look like it right now. Right now it looks like a pile of garbage, but I am going to be doing a video on completely rebuilding this from its current state back into an actual running and driving treadmill. So now all the air compressor fires up and charges. I'm going to bring the hose over. I got to tell you, for years I never had an air compressor at home. I got one at my house now, and it is amazing how often I use it just with a little air sprayer, little nozzle. It comes in handy so much. And not only that, but filling up like basketballs for the kids and stuff. And but you wouldn't think you'd use an air compressor that much at your house, but man. And I got like a big one. I don't have like a little dinky one. Okay, check this out. So we'll get in here. And look at all that. I don't know if you can see it very well on video, but man, there is a ton of junk in here that you just can't get with a vacuum. And these electronics love me because I'm cleaning off a lot of debris that's been on here for a long time. And so we can get right inside this motor here and I don't know if you can see it, but it's blowing dust everywhere. Dust loves to sit in this flywheel. So I'll give that a spin. If you're into dust bunnies, this is the place to be right now. But look how nice that looks all of a sudden. I mean, that was barely a realistic spray, and I don't know what that realistic spray means, but you know, I'm not going that heavy here, but we're getting a lot of junk out of this thing. And then I'll just hit it with a rag again and kind of knock it loose. Hit it again. There's a fan in here too, right here, and this actually doesn't blow air in, it actually blows air out. It gets all the heat blown out of there. So the inside of the motor cavity, you know, stays nice and cool. And then we can get really in these little crevices here with the deck cushions. Oh, that was a pop shot right there. There's a lot of people out there that say they recondition treadmills. Really, they're not doing this. They're just putting on a new deck, and they're not messing with the spots that you don't see when all the parts are back on. The key here is getting it looking good. Ooh. Casey got a little dusty there. Why don't you turn the camera around? Tell people hi, Casey. Casey's been with Treadmill Heroes now for 5 years. Is it 5 years? These you'll never get all the way vacuumed out. There's just too many little crevices here. So. Man, that is looking so much better already. Now we'll wipe off the stuff that's kind of stuck on there. And this is going to look really nice. If you're just joining us, I'm reconditioning a Matrix T5X treadmill. I don't even know if I'd call this a reconditioning, because this thing is in really good shape anyway. It's just dirty and it needs a new running belt. It needs a fresh deck side put on it. We're going to put a new dry belt on it. So we've completely torn off the deck, the belt, and we're cleaning up the frame. And then I'm about to put some new parts on, and that'll be kind of fun to see. Before that, I just want to make sure the inside here is nice and cleaned up. I want to make sure that if for some reason there's another technician that works on this down the road, they can vouch for my work. And I think they should be able to here, because we're doing what we're supposed to do here when it comes to reconditioning a unit. All right, about done with the blower. I think we pretty much got all the junk off there. Now, later on, I'm going to elevate this thing up. As a matter of fact, I can elevate this up now, and we can clean off the incline carriage. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to shut off the air compressor. So I don't know if you can hear that over the mic, but I'm going to shut it off. That'll have enough pressure in it for any last-minute blowings we have to give out. Casey, do we have anybody still watching, or did everybody die off after that loud air compressor?
111 on YouTube.
Well, hello, 111 livers on YouTube. I appreciate the views. And well, one Facebooker, whoever you are, thank you. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I've repowered the treadmill on. I'm going to elevate this up to expose the incline carriage underneath of there, because that's usually kind of dirty as well. So I'm just going to hit the go button. We're going to get a 3, 2, 1. I'm going to elevate this up. So we're going to take it up to 15. So there again, the motor's turning, but we don't have anything hooked up. Now you'll see on an AC motor, sometimes you will get voltage through the actual housing of the motor, so they don't want you to touch this while it's moving. That's why you have a rubber gasket underneath of the bracket on here too, to make sure that it, neutralizes any, juice that's flowing through that thing. So underneath it here's the incline carriage. You can see that this barrel here, I don't know if you can see it through the frame, but that's the worm gear that turns inside of this threaded barrel that makes your treadmill go up and down. And you can see these are dirty underneath it here. I mean, yeah, you get a lot of dust and debris. In fact, I'm just going to blow that out of there. We're going to have to clean off some of our other exercise equipment in here now that I just created a dust storm. But this is nice too. You know what? I've seen this where a reconditioned treadmill gets delivered and you got to carry it in and then you flip it on the side and you see the underneath side of it and it never even got wiped off. It's like, oh man. Little detail like that, but it's important. Okay, and you can kind of see the bottom of the fan here. That's where that fan, you can feel it blowing out, and that's the point. You don't want to blow anything in because it's just going to keep all the heat trapped in there. So this is actually like an exhaust fan. It's pulling all the heat out of the motor housing to keep it nice and cool. So if you're ever installing one of these fans, you can inadvertently install it upside down. And that could be bad news. All you're doing is trapping all the heat inside of there. So make sure that the fans that are in the motor hood cavity, make sure you can feel the air blowing out. And that way you know it's hooked up correctly. So we're going to lower this back down. We're going to put on a new belt and deck. What do you say? That'd be kind of fun. Casey, come around here and show the worm gear. So this worm gear here, that just runs on any kind of like grease. You know, if you wanted to use like well, I don't know, like a multi-purpose grease that we use on there. And then that'll keep that sliding nice and smooth in and out of that barrel. However, do not put grease on your finger and hold it on the worm gear. One, that's pretty reckless. And two, you get some metal shards on those gear, on that worm gear. And I know from experience, I've put grease on there. I'm like, oh, well, it's turning. I'll just rub it on there and let it spin. And I've gotten a couple metal slithers in my finger, which kind of hurt. So, back to this. I'm going to shut this thing off. We're going to power him down. I'm sure you can hear that fan going. There's actually a fan inside of this motor controller too. There's a fan in the motor controller. You can hear him. And so that's another nice thing that Matrix does. You know, I'll give them props for that. They do a good job of keeping their electronics cool. So we're going to shut that off. Okay. So now that I feel pretty good about how this frame looks, I'm going to install I'm going to put the old deck with the fresh side on it, because there's no sense in getting rid of this. This is a brand new surface on it. We're going to give it one more wipe down there to make sure I didn't miss any of the dust and debris. And we're going to come over here. And we are going to get into a new running belt. Oh, look at that. Pretty exciting stuff right there. So here's our new running belt. even says Matrix on it. Now, first what we're going to do, I'm going to get that deck wiped off one more time with our little shop towel here. There again, if you missed it earlier, don't put any cleaners on this. That cleaner is going to cause all kinds of problems with the slickness of the deck, the way the wax works inside the belt. What's going to happen when the new belt goes on this, and after a couple workouts, this wax is going to warm up here on the deck, and it's going to work itself into the pores of the belt. And so then when the belt gets warm, it releases wax and creates lubricant, and then it dries and then gets hot and dries and gets hot. So it's going to reuse itself for quite a while until over time it's all gone. And it's either all burnt up into the ether or it's stuck on the rollers, in which case you're done. Okay, so what I like to do is I like to take the deck and the belt. I like to put the belt on the deck before. Now, some belts are going to be directional and some are not. You're going to want to look inside of here. This is kind of nice. If you see that, Casey, that even says waxed. So for no confusion, this does not use silicone. This will use wax. And then you've got some labeling underneath of here. If it's directional, it'll have an arrow on it. These are not directional. So if it's directional, they'll have an arrow pointing towards the rear of the treadmill because that's the direction the belt goes. So we're going to slide the belt right over top of the deck. We're going to put the waxed side to the top. Man, these are heavy. And we're going to try not to pinch a fingy. There we go. Make sure your belt is nice and loose. Make sure it's not pinched underneath the deck. And we can put our deck bolts back in for starts, which are right here. Just for good measure, make sure the holes are nice and lined up. And you can kind of, here's a little trick, because sometimes it's hard to get through this 1-inch deck, the hole of this lined up with the hole of the deck cushion. So I'll take my Allen wrench and stick it down in there and just kind of wiggle it around. And that will kind of get it centered right on there. And then you should be able to drop it in and get it started right away. I don't tighten any of these until I got them all started. Same thing here up front. Kind of wiggle him around. Now, if you are working on a Life Fitness tread, they use Tinnerman clips, which, so those deck cushions I showed you, there's a clip that slides over the top of that deck cushion, and then your bolt goes down, threads in. Always replace the Tinnerman clips on a Life Fitness treadmill. They bend, they don't grip the bolt as good. Just, if you're doing a belt and deck or a belt on a Life Fitness commercial tread, always spend the extra $3-4 and get some new Tinnerman clips. The ones Matrix uses are very resilient. I've never had to replace one of those. It's just a better mousetrap. So there. I said something nice about Matrix. Even though we don't sell Matrix equipment, they make good stuff. And we are a service provider for Matrix too. So I mean, just because we're not a dealer of that brand, it doesn't mean it's a bad brand. And I'll point that out right now. Anybody who says, especially the big brands, let's talk about this for a second. Life Fitness, True, like I'm talking treads. Life Fitness, True, Star Trek, Precor, Matrix, Free Motion. Did I forget any, Casey? Cybex is dead and gone. Rest in peace, Cybex. However, if anybody tells you that their commercial treadmill is superior to one of those other big brands out there, tell them to go away. they're full of it, okay? These manufacturers have been around for a long time. They all make great stuff. So just go with whoever you feel is the best vibe for your facility. But also the biggest question you should ask is who's going to service this stuff? Because in many cases, that commercial rep who is selling you the fitness equipment for your facility, they don't have dirty hands. Like they're there to sell. They don't even own any tools, okay? So if you can buy your equipment from a place that also services it in-house and they don't farm it out, but man, if you can find a guy that says, I'm also the guy that's going to be with the installers doing the hard work, and also I know how to tear this stuff apart and fix it if you're in a bind and we're 4 weeks out on service, I can stop by and do some basic troubleshooting for you. Give that person a hug and buy their equipment from them, because all this stuff breaks. It doesn't matter what brand it is. This stuff breaks. This treadmill was, I don't know. How much was this treadmill new, Casey? $7 grand?
Yeah, probably.
$7,000, and here we are. We're putting on a new belt and new drive belt, and we're flipping the deck. Stuff wears out. Stuff breaks. No matter what it is. So you got to have reliable mechanics. You got to have reliable service technicians to work on your stuff. I'm going to clean that up. That looks a little gunky there. Even though it's under the step saddle there. You want to get these nice and snug. You don't want to win a strength competition by putting in deck bolts. You don't want to strip out the threads. Now, when we go to put this back on, you always put the front roller back on first. The rear roller is the last piece that goes on when it comes to tensioning the belt, because you got to get the front roller on here. The rear roller is designed to tension to the back. The front roller stays stationary. You'll never get a front roller in after you've already installed the rear roller. So, that being said, we're going to go ahead and put on our drive belt. Or I'm going to get our drive belt out of the baggie here. Nice and new. And by the way, these are typically like $40, $50 from the manufacturer direct. If you reach out to your friends at the fitness graveyard, they can usually get you one of these for like half that. Still brand new. So there's a lot of markup in parts, but there's markup in everything, right? You got to pay for the people that are answering the phone and troubleshooting the questions. Now, here's where I'm at. I'm going to show you guys how to put these front rollers in, that front roller back in, even though it's just kind of a reverse order, because I want to put new bearings in the rollers. But as a little bit of a tip, because I'm not going to have you follow me down to the other shop, plus I got to wire brush this stuff off. But as a tip, when you're putting in the front roller, put the drive belt over the roller, then slide it through. Otherwise, you're going to get this mounted, and you're not going to have a tension belt on there. Come on in, my man. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. So, put this on, and then that way, when you go to hook it up on the drive motor, it's already on the front roller. So we're just going to leave this off here for now, because there again, I got to put new bearings in this. Even though they're not making any noise, we've come this far, and these treads are going a couple hours away, and I don't want to have to mess with a noisy bearing over an $8 bearing in a month from now. That'd be a stupid problem to have. So you put your front roller on, then you put your rear roller on, and we just go in reverse order. So you can always go back to this video if you're at any point of this, and you can kind of see how we took those off, how we did that. And all in all, this is going to be a darn nice tread. So I'm going to do some stuff offline here. I hope this video helped you guys. If so, give us some comments and some likes and some shares. We're really inching towards that 10,000 followers on YouTube, which is amazing for a fitness equipment company. So anyway, hope you guys have a great day, and remember, don't just be super. Be super duper.